have England Wallabies, an old Ashes kind of clash. Interesting game coming right up in Twickenham on Saturday as well. Kickoff 5:30, slightly later. We have Jaco Piper of South Africa is the man with the whistle, the referee. AJ Jacobs and Pierre Brousset are the linesmen, and Stuart Berry is the TMO as well. This, like most of the others, is on Amazon Prime in the UK. That's who's covering the game as far as TV rights. But very, very interesting, spicy contest. Obviously, no love lost between these two. Interesting points of colour. The most recent meeting, obviously, England beat the Wallabies in that quarter-final and in a convincing fashion, 40-16 in the World Cup in Japan. So they currently hold the Cook Cup, which is contested by both of these sides. But the records are quite interesting. It's as even as it gets. They have played 51 times. Both sides have won 25 with one draw. So there are serious bragging rights going to the winner of this one because they will get a winning record going. The other little tidbit that's interesting is that Eddie Jones obviously has yet to lose in his tenure. He is 7-0 against the Wallabies since taking over the England job, which is pretty good.
Likes playing Australia.
He does, yeah.
They match up poorly against England. That's probably why.
Yeah.
It's definitely a challenge for this Wallaby team. They're a little under resourced.
Yeah,
they tend to be hammered. I mean,
that's the average score between them in the Jones era is 36-19 to England. Yeah. The aggregate average, which is just that's a depressingly one-sided statistic if you're a Wallaby fan, particularly ahead of a Twickenham game. It's a mighty challenge for the Wallabies, and we will get into them looking ahead of it. We're going to start though with the hosts and their winning picture. That is England. Yeah.
We have got the England squad for this week, and it's definitely not without its question marks.
True.
But it starts up front, and they have an absolutely mighty forward pack themselves.
Mean forward pack.
Ellis Genge, Jamie George, Kyle Sinclair, Itoje and Johnny Hill in the locks, Courtney Laws, Sam Underhill and Tom Curry making up the back row. Explosive, every one of them a
3
baller,
locks and 2 sevens.
Physical. Yeah, exactly right. Ben Youngs and Marcus Smith gets a start at 10.
Great to
How
see.
Good is that?
Exciting times. Faz
back in at 12. Henry Slade at 13. Question marks about the balance of that.
Yeah.
Johnny May on the left wing, world class. Manu Tuilagi on the right wing, seen out of nowhere.
Crazy. Well, it's not crazy. He's useful over in any capacity, but my thought would be that if he's at 12 with Faz probably out of the team and someone else on the wing, it's probably a little bit more balanced. So I'm not convinced by the 10, 12.
Why would you drop Faz? People hate on Faz.
No, I would keep Faz on the bench if you're starting Marcus.
If you're gonna try and make it more balanced, you drop Slade.
Faz
is world class. I would never drop Faz from this team. But anyway, that's just me.
I think either of those are more balanced than what they go with. I think with Slade and Faz in the centres, it's just a little bit light.
No, it does. It hasn't worked traditionally. If you just replace Smith with forward, it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
They have Freddie Stewart, the young Leicester fullback, 20 years old, keeping his 15 jersey for this one.
Yeah. And in good form.
Absolutely, yeah, and they've got some new heads on the bench. Newcastle's Jamie Blamier, Bevan Rodd of Sale Sharks, Will Stewart obviously as caps covering tight head, Charlie Ewell's covering lock, and then 2 back row subs, 2 number 8s despite no number 8s in the starting team, 2 on the bench, Dom Brandt and Simmons.
There you go,
class
good
operators.
Speed off the bench there.
And obviously as a 6-2 split, just Rafi Quirk and Max Malins to bring in. It is an England side bred for one purpose, to physically dominate the Wallabies up front.
That is the plan, alright.
Unfortunately, this was going to be quite a matchup before Tupou and Alatoa went down, and now all of a sudden, from an English point of view, the first port of call, you're thinking Alex Corbisiero 2013 third test. You're thinking Ellis Genge match up against James Slipper playing out of position at tight head.
Yeah, they should be easy money
with Itoje and Johnny Hill in the second room driving it. Yeah, that is money all day, and that's where it's going to start. England are going to try and blow this Wallaby team away physically. Yeah,
I would agree with that. Yeah, no, that you're like it was set to be so primed. If it was Alatoa and Tupou, that might have been a different contest altogether. But yeah, England, they are missing. There was one other thing about the squad was that Joe Marler was called up to the squad this week and then ruled out for this weekend with COVID, which was a whole thing. So that's probably why Blamier is probably going to be in for getting a cap. But it starts with Genge, because as you say, sometimes those like you see it in Bledisloe games, the Wallabies don't tend to scrummage anywhere near as aggressively as just every team in Europe does.
Yeah.
Like obviously with the exception of when Tupou's there, it's all go and they are aggressive. But like when they play the Kiwis, it's very often just kind of we'll just do a shake of the hand before the game. We'll just retain our own ball and play with it. How about that? Whereas when they meet the Springboks, that's very much not the recipe. And to be honest, like they were a little bit shocked by what the Scots were taking to them in a very gung ho fashion last week, and England are gonna look to kind of go on the nth degree of that and apply the squeeze right at the off from set piece. The other thing that they did very well in their last game against them in that 40 points to 16 win in the quarterfinal was the kicking. They couldn't, like the Wallabies just couldn't exit. They couldn't deal with the restarts.
That's right.
The restarts were going in the tram lines about 5 or 10 metres out from their own try line, bottling them up with a really good chase. And then normally England would score from that before the Wallabies had an attacking foray at all. So they will try and repeat that. They have a lot of kicking acumen on that pitch, obviously, with the Marcus Smith, Farrell and Slade, as well as your man at fullback as well. You know, there's a lot of good boots, educated boots out there for them. They will try and apply that pressure to this Wallaby backline that are a little disjointed at the minute.
Yeah, there's no question. The kicking game is a huge part of England's play under Eddie Jones. It always has been. It's always best on the front foot.
Yes.
For the last year, they lost their way. They won that Autumn Nations Cup, but never was there a worse team to win a cup than that England team because they never played an ounce of rugby with the ball. They were like the Pumas have been all year. They just kicked and defended in response to what happened at that World Cup. I'm excited now because I think we're going to see this high-powered English offence back in full flow. And with Marcus Smith at the helm running it, it's just a really, really exciting prospect.
Well, you look
and a scary one
the
for
way
everyone
Quins
else.
are playing the game, and to be honest, the way the Premiership has gone in the last few years as far as attacking footy, it makes sense that it filters up into the test side.
I mean, we talk about the interplay between forwards. Jamie George, as good as it gets,
He's basically a 10.
In a distribution position on a screen. He can carry explosively, he can tip on, or he can feed Marcus Smith out the back.
He can skip pass over the top.
The other thing I like is Tuolangi on the wing. He's not going to play 100% on the wing. They're going to trade him and Slade out and in, I think, for much of the game. He's going to come in picking hard lines, playing effectively as centre, I would say, in moments.
Try and test the Paisami Ikitau telepathy on defence.
And you're going to see Slade out there on the wing. They're going to throw a lot of different shapes at this disjointed Wallaby defence, a lot of deception, and I'm just very, very excited to see it. It does start up front. I think the explosive combination in the back row of Underhill and Curry, picking lines off the likes of off each other and off the likes of Jamie George, along with just the sheer physicality of Itoje and Johnny Hill in that engine room. I can just see them overloading the Wallabies.
True.
When this offense purrs at its very best, it is perhaps the prettiest in world rugby. I think
it's up there, but definitely
it's only going to get prettier with Marcus Smith in at 10 because I think this kid is a star. It's really real talent.
The sky's the limit as far as the ceiling's concerned. The recipe will be simple in that regard. They want to bully it. They want to get their fans involved. They want to get that Twickenham factor involved by just being there for the rough stuff and try and rough them up on the inside, try and dominate the kicking game in the early exchanges. Don't be reckless. Like Marcus Smith is young, obviously. The Wallabies are wanted to kind of punish you if you're going too wide too fast. Like they could grab a pick and Kellaway could be sprinted away, and that's not part of the recipe. But I give them the edge in the kicking duel in the middle third, and I trust the amount of playmakers they have to know when the right time to pull the trigger is. Pull the trigger.
Yeah, and I just think this side that he's picked has the balance to get the front foot.
They do.
With the framework that they have on offense, and I think Ben Young's at 9. Like nobody else in this England team, and the reason that Eddie Jones is stuck with him, he maintains that tempo.
The tempo going, for sure.
And they have such a rhythmic tempo, and the Wallabies have never been able to deal with it as long as Eddie Jones is there because they can't really stop them at the gain line. They resource the rucks really well. They're deceptive where the ball is going, and then when it gets to Smith, he has options, but he's on the front foot. The defence is flat-footed, and he's got all the talent to pick the right pass, and I suspect he will. I think it's a great matchup for England up against the defence. I think they're physically superior, and I think they're going to really have a cut now at the Wallaby defence. They do need to be a little mindful of Michael Hooper in and the Jacko.
For sure.
They do need to mind their P's and Q's on the offensive breakdown. But no, I don't think that it needs to be leaning kick heavy necessarily. I think they can move it through phases. I think this English team is better when they try to attack from the middle third. Last year it was too much kicking.
True.
When they want to kick, I want to see it being like those kicks on the edge when you get the wingers to come up and you're
attacking
putting kicks
for
in
Johnny
behind.
May.
Yeah, from
chase.
the likes of exactly right.
Yeah.
To get him on the board.
Yeah, or to get him 1v1 with a Kellaway retreating to gather a ball or something, like he'll gobble that up.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Just put the pressure on them that way. But there's such potential in this England team. Looking at it, it looks pretty. Like, I know there's a lot of complaints about the side, but it looks reasonably well balanced to me. I think Slade can move to the wing pretty easy now. I expect he will for parts of this game, and Tuolangi's going to come in. There's just so much talent in it and so much danger there from a Wallaby point of view.
So. From that Wallaby point of view, it's about containing them. Fresh from a bit of a kick in the nuts last week in Murrayfield, they are going to have to dust themselves off and be ready for that Twickenham factor, which the juju isn't good. Obviously, they have not beaten Eddie Jones's England at all, and now their record in Twickenham isn't the best anyway. But they know that they're going to have to be fronting up to what is a very monstrous English pack and a very aggressive, very dynamic backline. Guys like Ikitau in a seminal defensive role in the 13. Guys like Valentini will need to continue his big form and be there for the contact.
If the Wallabies are to win this game, Valentini is going to have to be all over it. Because
true.
England have so many playmakers on the other side of the ball. Valentini's done a great job of dominating just about everyone he's played, or at least winning collisions against just about everyone he's played. But it goes up another level again this week. I think England are primed and ready to go, so it's going to be huge from him. Hooper likewise needs to bring that teleportation device that he has in his pocket and be everywhere as we know he can be. We have got their team, and it is like there is some change, some of it forced. Obviously they're down their two best tight heads, which is where obviously England will look to attack with Ellis Genge, but from a Wallaby point of view it's going to be very tough. Angus Bell getting the start with Folau Faianga, and then it's James Slipper, as you say, out of position covering tight head. And then on the bench as well, actually I think they've called up your man from London Irish, that's right, Oliver Hoskins
set to make a cap because they're out of tight heads courtesy of the Murrayfield game. So this is it's a big old tough task to face an English scrum with shorn of your best two tight heads. It's a tough ask. They will be looking to lock it down as best they can and get clean ball out, particularly on their own feed. Just get clean ball out and try and work something out wide.
The whole team is Angus Bell, Folau Faianga, James Slipper, Rory Arnold, Isaac Rodda, Rob Leota, Michael Hooper and Valentini in the back row. Nick White somehow maintains his jersey at 9 over Tate McDermott. James O'Connor then at 10. Hunter Paisami and Nicky Tau in the midfield. Tom Wright and Kellaway on the wing, with Curtly Beale back at fullback.
Back in.
Tolu Latu covering hooker, Tom Robertson covering loose head, as you say, Hoskins covering tight head. Skelton and Samu is good impact. That is
their best part of their bench. And Tate McDermott as well actually could up the tempo at a good time.
And Pereze also covering the back. He was very good last week. And Noah Lolosio covering 10, obviously in the absence of Quade Cooper. I mean, it's tough to see them going to Twickenham and putting them show. Like, I'm a huge fan of this Dave Rennie Wallaby team that beat the Springboks twice, that plays dynamic, awesome footy, that's new and different and fresh from what came before. And then, like, as much as the good juju might have come in from picking all those European based players, I look at this team, and as a consequence of injuries and all sorts of other things, the whole Japan situation, the club footy situation,
they're missing the spine of the team.
It's just not Dave Rennie's team anymore. It looks and feels like a similar outfit that the one that went to the World Cup under Czechs.
A new team. Well, it looks like a brand new team, to be honest. That's what it looked like last week. Like, in terms of like the locks, you have Rodda and Arnold, as you correctly pointed out. Don't know why guys like
Philip and Swain,
who've been brilliant all season, aren't getting a look in there. That's a little point of disjointedness. The new halfbacks, in terms of, they're not the new halfbacks, they've been there before, but James O'Connor's had no game time this season. Nick White has had not that much game time in terms of being the first choice guy.
And I just think fundamentally, if you have a guy like O'Connor at 10 who sits a little deep, like, I think you need McDermott in there to balance it. I think Nick White works very well with Quaid, but actually the better combination with O'Connor there is with Tate McDermott.
And
but they haven't
similarly the massive Karevi shaped hole in their whole offensive structure.
Corabetti, I mean, even before Karevi came in, Corabetti was everywhere.
Doing that coming like someone needs to sit them down, and like, to be honest, from their point of view, it has to be Paisami. Paisami just has to run that line. It's Farrell up opposite him. It's not like it's Tuolagi lining up at 12, although it might be from time to time. But even if it is, he needs to commit to hitting that line and giving James O'Connor that bailout option, and then trusting Ikitau to be the guy slightly wider with a bit more footballing flair. Like, if they're going to get anything off on offence, it'll need to be well balanced, and that'll involve
their set-up plays against the Springboks, and when they played well against the All Blacks, were off the top of the line out. You were seeing Valentini off shortened lineouts, crashing through a contact, generating a few extra yards. Then they'd get around the corner. Then it would be Karevi picking a sharp line, beating a man, getting through, and then all of a sudden you had that front foot ball for Quaid and Co to work with.
Yeah.
As you say, it has to be replicated. You have to do something similar. You have to get Valentini into picking a hard line off first phase on set piece, trying to cut through the likes of an Underhill, generate a bit of momentum, do the same with Paisami, and then try and work around the corner.
Yeah.
There are potentially ins on offence for them in that way. It's definitely, from a defensive point of view for England, a little imbalanced. Slade is a good reader of the game from 13.
Yeah, it's just the physicality
of
it.
The Wallabies can back themselves to hustle,
yeah.
and that definitely could be, that's their main in, is to get those two sit-down lines, as you say, that they did so well against Dale Indy.
Yes.
In
it's
the
a similar
game,
recipe for it.
And find the edge. Then you can find the edge, and once you get to the edge, you've got guys like Kellaway out there
who will grab a try, who's in the mood to do it. Exactly, yeah. So there'll be a few ways for them to generate those ins. The kicking game will obviously have to be very, very good in terms of navigating territory. You can't allow England to just bottle you up as they did in the last time these two met. They hopefully some lessons learned in terms of prioritising exiting cleanly with a good strong kick chase. Similarly, their offensive maul has been good this season, but if they're going to go to it, somebody needs to watch Itoje, because Itoje is such a factor. And to be honest, Johnny Hill is as well with the telescopic arms. Like, the offensive maul has been good for them. They will look to probe there, but guys like Nick White will have to be alive to the danger, and also the locks.
Yeah, well, Rory Arnold and Isaac Rodda have to come out and justify why they have ousted Swain and Phillip from the Wallaby team. They have to go out and justify it. Like, if they're that good, go out and show it. This is a huge test up front. They have to be relentlessly physical.
There's no room for any shrinking violets in the whole team. And that can happen in Twickenham. But the Wallabies are as guilty of it as many other teams are. That you just rock up to Twickenham and don't play your best game, even if you lose the game, or even if you were to play your best game, it weren't to be enough. But a lot of teams don't play their best game in Twickenham, and they will have to if they're going to have success.
Yeah, and the best thing about Wallaby teams, and I would include, as much as I'm disappointed that they're finishing the season with just a shadow of what they were in the Rugby Championship, they still have that offensive quality to them. And we saw last week for Leota's try that it was just a simple little set piece move. They actually managed to get the edge, broke the line, and then straight away it was actually just a blindside pass from Nick White to Leota, who just cut straight through, and they got a cheap try. And they are at their best. They do find cheap tries. If they can get a gain line advantage, they read the game really well. They see where the defence is limited. Nick White reads it pretty well, and they pick hard lines and they find tries. That is their best quality, and that is their in this game, is to find cheap tries after winning the advantage line off set piece. Obviously easier said than done against a tough English team.
Much easier said than done. I think a few other ins are to mind the discipline. If they can be the right side of the ref, that can frustrate England. Lock down the scrum, get your own ball in and out.
Yeah, the forward pack has such a job to do.
It's all on the forwards, really. But be secure, be solid, and then make England be the ones that get frustrated. Keep that strike in your arsenal that they do. Like, they were too lateral last week in general, just with the back play to across the line. So it starts with that hard line just to straighten. But from then on, the instincts are good, as you say. If the ball bounces, or if there's a simple 2-on-1, they will execute. So they're not without ins, and it's certainly not a hopeless task, but it is an uphill battle, and England are definitely favourites in my mind. Speaking of, how do you see it going?
Well, can the Wallabies defend them? You know,
can they stop them? I think guys like Valentini and guys like Rodda and all need to make massive hits and make them count.
To be fair, I am assuming that England are going to, just on the basis of the selection, I just have a feeling that they're going to show up playing something similar to what they were in 2019. Where they were a high tempo, physical passing offense. It was about passing from everybody. And forwards being a linchpin in that, but they did it with such shape, just endless screens, deceptive screens. We have a screen here and there, very Saris based, using the full width of the field with dangerous carriers everywhere and the smarts to pick the right options. They were an absolute joy to watch when they were at their best, the way they managed their way around the field. and nigh on undefendable when they got it right. You think of that All Black game, some of the set plays that they went through.
Well, the only way was to do the Springbok route of smash them back in every collision.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
they're less potent.
Exactly right,
Yeah.
but I don't see the Wallabies doing that. But that is an assumption that I'm making based on the side. I feel like they're going to rock up and be that team. Yeah. They might not.
They might not.
In the Six Nations, they
can...
kicked everything.
Yeah.
They played to defend, and they were made to punish. And if you give the Wallabies enough chances, if you play to defend,
grab tries,
the Wallabies will grab tries.
Yeah, it's
and
very tough to put the Wallabies to the sword. England are better at it than most European sides, but even a stuttering Wallaby side can sometimes grab a try or two and make it a one-score game.
Ask the Springboks about it. The Springboks have dominated the Wallabies before and drawn the game because the Wallabies just grabbed a cheap try where the Springboks didn't, and that's definitely a factor. But no, personally, I think England are going to be very good and are going to come back and win.
I would have hedged with the Wallaby punt had they not lost both of their tight heads last week. But Scotland's such an attritional team to play against. But I think on balance that England have just a little too much, and I think it could be a 2-score or maybe more game.
I would agree. I just don't think the Wallabies have all their tools, unfortunately, and I think you need them.
If you're going to go to Twickenham to win, you probably need to be rocking up with your strongest side for the most part. That's true.
Yeah, that's certainly what I think. But let us know what you guys think. Are the Wallabies a better chance than we're giving them credit for? They certainly have some good players out there. Do you think that they're going to pull this off? Do you think we're overrating England? That they finished 5th in the Six Nations, and what are we talking about? But I'd just look at this squad. I think they're really good.
They're really, really good.
But let us know down in the comments below. And with that, we're going to move on.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for tuning into the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you're new here, please do like and subscribe and ring the bell as well so you'll be notified when we upload. But mainly, drop a comment down below as well. We love hearing your thoughts on the rugby. Cheers.